This is always a difficult subject for music students for decades now. It's always been slightly confusing or severely confusing, whatever. I just keep reviewing it. Okay, so when you, well, let me make a real word. Okay, a dominant chord is always a seventh chord. And a dominant 7 is always root, major third, fifth, flat 7. Now there's variations of a seventh chord. You have 5-7, 5-7, and then you have a flat 9, 5-7 plus 9, and then you have a 5-7 sharp 5. Okay, and that equals a 5 plus 7. So the 5-7 is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. That's always the core of these chords. The next one, we have the same thing, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and we can throw a flat 9 on the top. Here's the opposite, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, sharp 9. And this one has the sharp 5 in here, so it's going to be 1, 3, sharp 5, flat 7. Okay, so these two notes go beyond the 7th. They go up to the 9th. Now we can have the chord stack 1, 3, 5, 7, and then we have 9, 11, and 13. So in the key of C, we have a G7 chord, because it's a 5, right? So we have G, B, D, F, right? Now the 9 is the same as the 2 of a scale, right? So the 9 is going to be A, and the 11 is the same as a 4 of a scale, so it's going to be C, and the 13 is the same as a 6, so it's going to be E. So there's the full stack. That's a G13. So when you have a 13th chord like that, you can modify the 5, you can modify the 9, you can modify the 11, and you can modify the 13. The ones that you don't modify to keep it a dominant chord are the major third and the flat 7. Flat 7. So those two, you have to retain the 3 and the flat 7 to keep it as a dominant chord. So for dominant, the main tones are 3 and flat 7. My and looks like a those are the main tones. 3 and flat 7 are the strongest tones in a dominant chord, and that's the ones you have to keep. No matter what alterations you do to the chord, you have to keep a 3 and flat 7. If you change the 3, in other words, if it's a flat 3, then right away it goes to minor. Because flat 3 is always going to indicate some kind of minor chord, right? If you have a natural 7, then it's no longer a dominant, right? The natural 7, it always indicates a major 7. So if you have this formula here, that's a minor with a natural 7. So we call that a major or a minor major 7. Because of that 7. That 7 is the natural 7, right? Does that make sense, you guys? So a dominant is always going to have the 3 and the flat 7, and a dominant 7th chord is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. That's like the given. And these are considered to be called altered dominants. I would screenshot that if you could. Let me move this out of the way for you. There you go. You got a screenshot? Where's your emoji, Stan? What is that? Clapping? Do they have a thumbs down too?
No, I wish.
How about a middle finger? That'd be great. You know, some of these music theory classes they have at Cal State Fullerton have 70 people in them. Can you dig that? Wow. And they're in the big, like a big auditorium. I know one of my students took a class there in theory, beginning class, and there were 70 people in it. And I told him, how does a teacher have time to grade all the homework? Jeez. Okay, so let's do this. So if we have a 3 and a 7, a flat 7, those are the main dominant sounds. Okay, so if you have a G7, that would be a G, B, D, F, right? And the 3 and the 7, let's say the flat 7, are the main sounds. So if you're playing a blues, you have Okay, so for blues, we have a progression that goes G7 to C7. Now, what jazz and blues musicians do is they don't treat those as 5 chords. They just call that a 1 chord, a 4, and a 1, and a 1. That's their terminology. Even though it is a dominant, it's a 5 chord, but they call it a 1 chord. That's a 4, and a 1, and a 1. Then we have a 5, 4, 1, 5. So we have G7, G, B, D, F, and we have C7, C, E, G, B flat. And here's our 3 and 7, right? So we have B and F, and E and B flat. So what happens here is this: in a blues, the resolutions usually go like this. If you have a G7, you have the B and F, there's your 3 and your 7, and then they resolve it by just going like this. So they just move those things down just a half a step. And that's your like, we consider that to be like a brilliant outline, just using these 3/7 voicings here. Now I'm going to play those 2 voicings, those 2 notes, and I swear to God you guys will be able to hear a blues with just those 2 notes. If I go like this, I'm just doing a 3/7 voicing. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got a 3/7 here, then a 7/3. Now if I put the root in there, it's really obvious. So those 2 voicings are the most important in a dominant chord, okay? That's the point I'm trying to make, is a 3 and a 7. If it's a 3 and a natural 7, that's a major 7th chord. If it's a 3 and a 6, it's a major 6th chord, not a dominant. Dominant has that. So what that is that's a tritone. Could you hear those notes outline the progression? Could you hear a blues progression with just those 2 notes? That's how strong they are. See, that's the point I'm trying to make, is those tones, when you're doing the dominant, you don't want to omit those. Like a lot of 4-part writing, they'll use 1, 3, 5, and a lot of times 4-part writing, they'll do 1, 3, 5, and then double 3. I've even seen 1, 3, 3, 3 a lot of times in classical music. But when you're doing a 4-part chord, a dominant chord, the 3 and the flat 7 outline that dominant sound. Okay, snapshot that. Okay, so secondary dominance. We have our 5/7 chord, right? That could be anything. So you could have it be C7, D7, E7. Right, just go down the list. So what you do is you take this chord, and that's a 5 chord, right? Now we treat it as a temporary 1 chord. So C is the root. So you count up to the 5th. So then you build a dominant chord off the 5th note. So where C is our tonic, we're ignoring the fact that it's a C7, and we're just going with C as our root. And then C is our root, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Our 5th note is G. So what we want is a G7. So if you're going to have a C7 chord, that would be a 5 chord in the key of C, right? If we did a 5, 7 of 5, 5 would be C, and then the 5 of 5 would be G, because C is 1, E is 3, and G is 5. I did that backwards. So C7, our 5 chord of 5 of C is G. So 5 of 5. Now let's take D for example here. Let's go blue. Let's go Dodger blue. So we have D7. So we count up. That's 1. E is 2, right? F, G, A, right? So A is the 5th of D, right? So A7 would be a 5/7 in the key of D. Starting to make sense? Okay. So if we have our chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. What's the 5 of? Well, let's say A. So A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, E, F sharp minor, G sharp, diminished, undo, and then 1 again. Okay, so there's our chord scale for the key of A. So the 5 of A is going to be E, right? So 5 of A equals E, right? Now, if we're using B minor, B minor is now the tonic, right? B is tonic. I'm calling it a tonic. So now we count up 5, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to F, right? So the B scale is going to be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp. That's our B major scale. Okay, so the 5th would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B and F sharp that's a 5th, right? Interval. So F sharp is going to be our chord. So F sharp is the 5 of B, right? Right? F sharp is the 5 of B. So for B minor, the 5 of 2, we're going to call that, you can call that F sharp or F sharp 7. Because this 5 chord is always going to be a dominant. So now when you got a 5 of 2 like that, F sharp 7, wants to resolve to a B. You can keep B minor, or you can resolve it to a B major if you want to in a chord progression. Okay, now let's take a look at the 3 chord. C sharp minor. C sharp minor. What's the 5 of C sharp? G sharp, right? So the 5 of 3 equals G sharp or G sharp 7. What's the 5 of 4? Here's 4. D, right? A 5th above D is A. So A or A7, that equals the 5 of D or 4. Is this starting to make any sense? Stan, you getting it? Yeah? I usually have to go through this about 10 times for people. Okay, so let's go to part 2 of our homework. You guys lost your video feed, did you? There you go. So you guys did this hopefully over the past couple nights. Did you get a chance to get this done?
I have a question about it.
Sure.
The first example is a triad.
Yeah.
So for all the fives that don't have a seven, do we do triads?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, yeah. Let's take a look at this one down here. This one we'll do in class, 14.2. So we're in the key of F, right? Okay. So F is our scale, right? So the 5 of 5 in F. So that's an example. So the 5 of F equals C, right? Right, because the F triad is FAC, right? And there's our 5, right? So C is our target here. So now what's the 5 of C? So you go C, E, G. So there you have it. G, GBD. Okay, so now it stays in F. So now you expand it out to a 5-7. So you have to add the 7th now. What would you add to make it a 5-7?
Add F.
Well, we're in the key of F, and it's still the 5 chord. 5 chord is still C, right?
Yeah, so it'll be a G7, so all you have to do is add an F to it.
Good. Now here's some new territory. The 7 of 5. Now we talked about how 5 and 7 can be swapped out for each other, and that's what they're doing here. So in the key of C, what's our 7 chord in the key of C? It'd be a B, right? In the key of C, the 7 is B, right? Half step below the root. Yeah? So in the key of C, see here's our key right here. See? We're in the key of F there.
Oh, so it's the same key for the whole line.
Yeah, see?
Okay, got it.
All right, so the 5 is still C, E, G, right? So the C is our tonic. What's our 7 of C? B, right? And they want a B. That little circle means full diminished. So we're going to go B. Let me use B, D, F. See, that's a B diminished. Now we want a half diminished 7. So that would be a minor 7 flat 5. So it would be a B what? B, D, F, A. That's easy because in the key of C there's no sharps or flats, right? So that would be a B minor 7 flat 5, or a B half diminished 7, right? And then we want a full diminished 7. So remember, full diminished has to have what to make it a full diminished? It goes from a flat 7, and a full diminished has a double flat 7, right? So then we're going to go B, D, F, and here's where we got our A flat. So then it resolves to the 5. Okay, so now if we go like this, we have a 5 of 2 always wants to resolve to a 2. A 5 of 3 wants to resolve to a 3. A 5 of 4 wants to resolve to a 4. A 5 of 5 wants to resolve to that same 5. And then, of course, a 5 of 6 wants to resolve to a 6. The only one that doesn't want to resolve, whoops, this is the only one, 5 of 7. You can't resolve to a 7. So that one, that's a big no do, no do. Okay, snapshot that. So every time you have a secondary dominant, it wants to resolve to its tonic. And when you do that, this is called tonicized. Alrighty. Okay, we did example 1. Let's try example 2. G minor now. Okay. So now we got to think about our scale. So I'm going to use red and write the scale up here. G, A, B flat, right? C, D, E flat, F, G. That's our G minor scale, right? And that's natural minor, right? So our 6 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Our 6 is going to be E flat, right? And it's a major, right? Not a lowercase 6. So E flat. Now, E flat is our temporary tonic. We need to go to a 5 of E flat. So 5 of E flat, well, if you just spell a quick triad, there it is, a B flat, right? B flat, D, F. Does that make sense? Okay, now, how do I make it a dominant chord? We add the flat 7, right? Now, since the key signature is over here, we don't need to do it, but I like to put key signature, I like to put those in anyway. And when you put a bracket around it, it's called a courtesy accidental. So that's a B flat 7. Now here's our diminished ones.
Is the A flat as well?
B flat, D, F, A flat, right. That flat 7 means you got to step out of the key a little bit. And you got to make it A flat, because that equals the flat 7 of B flat 7. So let me show you something real quick here. If you're going from C and then it goes down to D7, that's a progression that happens a million times in country music. So you have your 1 here, and D7 is the what? The 5, 7 of G, right? Or the 5, 7 of 5. So this just goes down a whole step. That happens all the time. C, or it goes up a whole step to D7, right? Up a whole step, C to D7. And it goes to a dominant. Because in a regular key, C would go up to D minor, right? So there's your upward movement right there, C to D. So that's a whole step up, and it would go to D7. Same thing with the 4 chord. If you go C to F, that's a 1 to a 4 progression, right? And if we're a 4-part chord, that'd be C major 7 to F major 7 in the key of C, right? And that equals a 1 major 7 to a 4 major 7. That's diatonic to the key of C, right? Well, what if we go C major 7 to C7? So now you're going a 1 dominant 7, and a C7 is the 5 of what? 4, right? F is the 4, right? So FAC is the chord, and our 5th is C, right? So if we make it a C7, that's a 5, 7 of 4. Okay, an example of that would be Beatles, Hey Jude. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Hey, hey. So it starts on F. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Now it goes, so it goes F is the 1. change it from a C to a C7. And you got that kind of a progression there. That happens a ton in pop music. Okay, so now we did G minor. Now our diminished seven. So G is our G minor scale. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we got a B flat there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6. And we have a flat 7. And then if we're going to use a diminished chord, that always goes to the natural 7, the diminished. So if we're on a 6 chord, G, A, B, C, D, E flat, we're still at E flat. It is our 6, right? So now we got to look at the E flat scale. E flat, F, G, A, B, C, D, E flat, right? E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, right? So there's our E flat major scale. So our 7 is going to be this D, right? Because that's an E flat, it's our tonic. So it's going to be a D diminished, right? Did that make any sense? So it goes to the 7 of the 6 chord. The 6th chord being 1, 2, 3. No, our 6th chord in G, excuse me. Our 6th chord in G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's our 6th chord in G here. Say G. There's our 6. So that's this chord here, the E flat, right? And for E flat, you want the 7, which is D. Is that convoluted as hell, or do you understand it? You got it? Okay. Danielle, was that confusing? Good. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about this some more on Monday a little bit. I appreciate you guys hanging in there today. We're going to cut out a couple minutes early because there's nobody here. And you guys have a good weekend. Can you get your homeworks turned in today, those ones that we did from the other day?
So we don't finish this?
No, we're the plan was to do this one in class.
Okay.
The top one, the top part, that's the part that we were going to turn in, this part here. Just that for the homework. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll see you guys on Monday then, okay?
Thank you.